taking notes from nobody.
Jaylen Brown.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Celtics Pregame Live. I am your host, Rob Tan, and I'm with all my fellow co-hosts. You know them by now, but if you don't, Justin Lowe, Ian Angelo, and Seamus, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day, guys. How are we feeling about the Celtics? Yet another third out of the fourth game at home. This little home stand tonight against the Rockets. The Rockets are 1-4, guys. How are we feeling entering tonight's game?
If we don't grab a win, we're going to – I don't know. The city might riot because this Rockets team is 1-15 coming in tonight. They haven't won since their second game of the season. That means they're on a 13-game losing streak right now, 14-game losing streak right now. We lost to the Thunder last year coming off of a 14-game losing streak. They were coming off a 14-game losing streak. Same thing cannot happen tonight.
For sure. And I think it's really important, it was tweeted out on the Celtics Talk Weekly Twitter account. If you don't follow them, go follow them. This could be a really easy game tonight for the Boston Celtics if they actually respect their opponent. I think that's something that we've seen the Celtics kind of do a lot. Yes, the Rockets are 1-14, but they are very capable of winning a basketball game where the other team kind of comes in unprepared. Justin, now, we haven't seen that too much since the Bulls game from the Boston Celtics coming into tonight's game. But, what do we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen?
Well, do what you did against Oklahoma City Thunder, right? Where you played the Los Angeles Lakers, who, they're off to a tough start. But on paper, you look at their opponents and Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Dwight Howard, Rajon Rondo, all in one team. And you look at that and you kind of go, okay, this is some competition. There might be a little older. Then the next game, the night after that, is a little trap game where it's actually you went from facing one of the better and most older teams in the NBA to now one of the more lottery bound. Right now, they're kind of teeter-tottering in the play-in early in the season, and one of the younger teams in the NBA. And you beat the Oklahoma City Thunder pretty handily, despite when the main red clause went in. That just absolutely the walk of shame came early in the season for Ime Udoka this season. But go in there and play like you did against the Oklahoma City Thunder the first 3.5 quarters. Go out there, dominate, show some effort. We're finally going to get to see Jaylen Brown and Robert Williams take the floor again. We'll get into that. Little minute restriction. This would be a perfect game for guys like Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, maybe even some Peyton Pritchard, Jabari Parker, breakout games. It's going to take that tonight to beat the Rockets because they are 1-15, but they got some tough, gritty players on this team.
For sure. And like you said, Jaylen Brown finally returning to the lineup after missing the last 8 games with that I believe it was a right hamstring strain. It was said to be week to week, and it was week to week. He was out almost exactly 2 weeks. And now that Jaylen Brown's back in the lineup, the Celtics are 7-3 in the last 10, playing actually some of the best basketball in the league. They're 4th best in the NBA. They're the best defensive rating team since that game against Chicago. They really have been firing on all cylinders. Now that Brown is back, what do the Celtics need to do to kind of get a rhythm offensively? Because things have kind of been clicking here.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they need to change much of what they're doing. If they continue playing the elite defense that they've been playing over this stretch of games and, slowly ease Jaylen Brown back in. I know he's on a minutes restriction. He's got 24 minutes. And, there really isn't much to say that's really been bad about this team over the last 10 games, except maybe the fourth quarter execution and seeing that they're the worst fourth quarter team in the league, basically. So, closing games is going to be important, but when it comes to bringing Jaylen Brown back into the fold, I think the minutes restriction is fine. Just ease him back in, get him comfortable, and continue playing the defense that you've been playing all season.
For sure. And, Brown isn't the only one returning back to the lineup tonight. Robert Williams, who's kind of, been pretty healthy, entering in the game, I believe against Atlanta. Was it the game he was out or the game before that?
Cleveland.
He got hurt.
Cleveland, he exited the second half of the game. Really, right after during that pregame show, he said how great he's been. He leaves, doesn't come back, misses 3 games. Seamus, obviously, Robert Williams came out and said, he doesn't believe there's a minute restriction. What does Robert Williams entering back in the lineup do for the Celtics moving forward?
Well, it certainly makes this game much easier tonight, and especially looking at, opponents ahead of us now. that gives us a huge advantage looking ahead to Brooklyn on Wednesday, because you look at their lineup, not too many big men scatter their roster, not too many dudes who can go toe-to-toe with Robert Williams. He dominated them in the playoffs last year, and we could see the same thing on Wednesday night with Robert Williams. And like you said many times, he's been our defensive anchor this year, right next to Al Horford.
Totally.
They've been, quite honestly, one of the best front courts in the NBA this entire season. And I'm happy to have both of them, and I'm happy to have Rob back in the lineup because, again, looking back at other opponents and other games, that Lakers game on Friday, I think we would have beat them by 50 if we had Robert Williams in the lineup, because that first quarter doesn't happen with Robert Williams in the lineup. So he certainly brings a whole new dynamic to both ends of the floor with this team. I'd like to see him used more on offense, but we'll see how that transpires moving on. But Robert Williams coming back is a huge, huge advantage for the Celtics.
Totally. I think it's safe to say Robert Williams is one of the, if not the best, one of the best defenders on this team. You know, you saw the difference he's made, you know, and again, like you said, a game against the Lakers, you know, Anthony Davis, that was a tough matchup for us in the first quarter. Al Horford kind of figured it out as the game went on. But, you know, a guy like Robert Williams brings a presence that is really hard to match. And having him back in the lineup is great. However, you know, it's not all sunshine and rainbows at Boston, because the injury report still does exist in Boston tonight. Josh Richardson, a non-COVID related injury, is out of the lineup. Udoka says story of the season. One guy comes back, another one goes out. Justin, you know, not having Richardson back, what does that do for the Celtics tonight?
It really stinks, because the number one thing we've talked about with Josh Richardson is his consistency in play, because his consistency to stay healthy has been poor so far this year. But he's strung together a great little stretch of games, especially coming off the Celtics bench. Luckily, the Celtics bench might be a little bit more padded now, where Grant Williams has been playing phenomenal. We'll see how he adjusts back into that bench role, because he's been getting some minutes. Either Marcus Smart or Dennis Schroeder. I don't know if the starting lineup has been released yet, but one of those two guys might make their way back to the bench if the Celtics continue with the double big with Horford and Robert Williams. So it'll be interesting, but missing Josh Richardson is going to be tough. This gives Neesmith and the Langfords and even the Pritchards, if he gets some time, an extra excuse to, you got to step up tonight, because a big piece in Richardson is gone. And wasn't there a game where Richardson was the only bench scorer a few games ago?
Yeah.
Was that Atlanta, if I was right? Right. And that's something we stress. So now this is an even bigger excuse for some of those bench guys to step up tonight against the Houston Rockets.
Totally. And someone I do actually want to talk about is Grant Williams. I mean, the dude started off the season, you know, really came out firing.
I re-signed him in fantasy, by the way.
He looked great to start the season off, right? When Al Horford was out.
Yeah.
And then he gets sent back to the bench, and he kind of started flying under the weather, or the radar a little bit. He didn't really he wasn't awful, but he really wasn't producing in terms of a stat sheet. And then Robert Williams goes out of the lineup. He gets slid back into the starting five, and all of a sudden he starts to produce very well again. Do you think that this is a trend where Grant Williams does better when he's actually starting the game off? Because we haven't seen him really this season come off the bench and give us a spark.
Yeah, I mean, Grant, I think the thing with Grant is that as much as we want him to be like, you know, this flexible guy who can come off the bench and, you know, spot up three and start at the same time, I feel like he is better suited if he has one consistent role. Like, I mean, he's been spectacular as a starter, but at the same time, are you going to bench Al Horford or Robert Williams to start Grant Williams?
Yeah.
Really, that's not what you're going to do. So when it comes to Grant, I feel like he just needs to find some comfort on the bench, because it felt like he was just kind of getting thrown around between the starting lineup and the bench. And I can see why he wasn't finding any consistency. But now I feel like if hopefully we can stay healthy for a little while, hopefully Grant can find a little more consistency off the bench. Also, Justin, about the starting lineup, Jaylen Brown, it's basically the opening starting lineup. So we got Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Robert Williams.
Okay, so we're back to normal.
Yeah, so Schroeder does return to the bench, and that doesn't surprise me, because with the way Smart's been passing the ball, I think he's kind of solidified that starting point guard spot. Steve, I don't know what you guys think, but I think the start of the year is kind of shaky for Smart. He's kind of getting adjusted. And then he kind of I think he's settled in recently. I mean, he had 11 assists the other night, so I think he's been great. I don't know what you guys think.
And his shot selection has been a lot better as a playmaker. I mean, you put the ball in Marcus Smart's hands. I'll admit I was one of those where I was a little bit nervous to put the ball in his hands, but he is a very, very, very underrated playmaker. Dennis Schroeder is fantastic, phenomenal playmaker, but he turns the ball over a lot. Marcus Smart kind of takes that away, but then you get the scoring with Dennis Schroeder. So, it'll kind of balance it out tonight. It'll be interesting to see because we haven't seen this starting lineup or, this kind of rotation since opening week, right?
Yeah.
It's been a while. So it'll be good to kind of see how these guys can really adjust. And this is kind of a perfect game. I'm not saying, we're going to go out here and I'm not guaranteeing a win. I mean, although I should, but this is kind of a great opponent to kind of get back into the swing of things a little bit where you're getting this guy back, but you're losing this guy. So, it's a good night to adjust back to what you wanted to be in the first place, if that makes any sense.
For sure. I think it makes perfect sense. Well, that does bring us, guys, to the keys to the game. Obviously, we do this every episode and people kind of say we get repetitive. So, Ian, start us off. What do you have keys to the game for the Boston Celtics tonight?
Finish out the game. I mean, there's really not much to it. Like I said before, the Celtics are the worst fourth quarter team in the league so far. And I mean, me and Justin, we were there for that Oklahoma City Thunder game. Like, it was embarrassing to have to see the starters come back in after the bench got rolled out. Although I don't think the bench should have been out there. And like the reserve shouldn't have been out there in the first place because it was still somewhat of a close game. But that's neither here nor there. But if you guys have a big lead, please just focus on closing the game out. Please. That's my key to the game.
I think that's super important. And Seamus, what do you got for us, dude?
Well, my key to the game, and I said this last game too, and I believe, we have to diversify the offense, and it really goes hand in hand with integrating Jaylen Brown back into the offense because before Jaylen Brown went out, our biggest question surrounding the Celtics was, can Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum fit together in the offense? And so far, we haven't really had any results on that because Jaylen Brown's been out. So tonight, him coming back, it's going to be nice to see him implemented back into the system, especially against this Rockets team, 1-15. They're completely abysmal. We will win tonight, by the way. We will win. I'm guaranteeing that 5-2 mark down. Quick little guarantee. Don't need to be too dramatic about the Rockets, but I want to see Jaylen Brown implemented and on our offense be diversified. More cutting, more off-ball screens. I'm just screaming for that at the moment. And if we achieve it over the season, if the Celtics achieve it over the season, they're going to find a much easier time operating in the playoffs than what they're doing right now. Because even with all the defensive prowess that we've had lately, the offensive end of the floor has still been sort of stagnant at times. Now, the last two games, ball movement's been up, player movement's been up, and that's what you like to see. And hopefully we can trend in that right direction while continuing to add to the offense.
Well, I want to add on to that key to the game, and staying on the topic of offense, I want the Celtics to minimize their turnovers. They only had 7, if I'm correct, 7 turnovers in that win against Oklahoma City Thunder. The Celtics extremely, extremely crisp, especially in that first half against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that's kind of been one of our keys to the season, not just to the game, to the season, getting off to quick starts. And to see the Celtics come out like that on a second night of a back-to-back in front of their home crowd was extremely, extremely relieving to see. So I'm looking for the Celtics to minimize their turnovers. Also, these Houston Rockets, I believe, are the youngest team in the NBA. They have something like 4 19-year-olds. I'm older than like 4 of their players on the roster.
Same. I'm older than like half their team right now.
These guys can run. Their first round draft pick, Green, can run. He can run the break. He showed off that in the first game we played against them. So guess what? Tonight you got to minimize the turnovers.
For sure. And I think the last one here for me is win the rebounding battle. And I know that might sound bland and basic, but it's actually not, because they got 2 guys in that starting lineup who can rebound the basketball very well. Christian Wood averaging right around 16 points, 12 rebounds, 11 rebounds. He's been phenomenal for them down low in the paint. Could be a real problem. And also, a fellow friend in Daniel Tice making that star who's a kind of a bigger four. He's an athletic, can spread the floor, can rebound if need be. And they got shooters around them. Eric Gordon can catch fire. Jalen Green has struggled a little bit from beyond the arc, but he can show to knock it down. And along with their point guard, Jayshawn Tate, he's also been able to show that he can shoot the ball well. So I think it's really important for the Celtics to minimize second chance points and, avoid those kickouts off this rebounds. And that actually brings us to the key matchup of the game tonight. And I think this is a big one. Robert Williams, versus Christian Wood. Christian Wood, like I said, guys, that man has been a real, gem, diamond in the rough, I could say, for the Houston Rockets. I mean, a great young big. He's, like I said, 16 and 12. And what does Christian Wood present tonight against the Celtics that could be a problem?
Christian Wood presents, he's just a force down low. And when he gets to be a free agent, I think it's after this season, he's going to get paid a lot of money when he becomes a free agent. Now, what he brings is something that, like, your key to the game came up with, rebounding. He is an excellent rebounder. He can put it back up with the best of anybody. And if there's anybody that's going to slow down Christian Wood or defend Christian Wood to the best of his ability, it's going to be Robert Williams, even if it's on a minute restriction, even if he doesn't say it's a minute restriction. I don't see how Ime Udoka doesn't put him on one, but at the same time, I feel like it's going to be really important to hone in on Christian Wood because he's going to get every rebound. And as we know, the Houston Rockets are not a very good offensive team, so there'll be a lot of opportunity to rebound the ball.
Do we do we know for sure whether or not it is a minute restriction for Robert Williams?
I didn't.
They didn't say anything about it, but like I have a feeling it's gonna be, even if he says it's not gonna be. Like they have to be a little careful with him.
This should be a minutes restriction game for everyone, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with
the
the Nets coming up, right, Seamus?
Yeah, they should finish this early, get it done by the time the fourth quarter rolls around. We don't want to. Last game I thought was fairly over by the time the fourth quarter ran around, but OKC was somewhat lingering around, and obviously we had to put the starters in at the end. A couple more points. We went up 25 points in that game. Say we go up only 19, like we discussed. We don't get over that 20 mark. Maybe we possibly go to overtime or lose that game, and then we're sitting here talking about the most embarrassing Celtics performance of the season, and that can't happen tonight against the Rockets. They have to finish it out in the third. And when the bench comes in, they have to get the job done as well. Because I thought, we did blow that lead the other night, but I thought the bench was fairly responsible for a majority of it. And the bench, they just have to get it done when they come in. Because this is a 1-15 Rockets team. This is a team, they're young. They have a couple of veterans that can kill us. But at the end of the day, no one who you look at and go, okay, well, that dude, we have to defend that guy. I know we talked about Christian Wood, but he's ultimately not someone with the ball in his hands, and he doesn't have a distributor this year. It's absolutely insane. There's no point guard on this Houston Rockets team currently outside of DJ Augustine. I know you could say Kevin Porter Jr., but he's not a true point guard. And
he's also out tonight for the Houston Rockets.
Kevin Porter Jr.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there you go. Still no point guard for this team. So this should be a game they get done early.
Especially with the Brooklyn Nets coming to town Wednesday night. That's a huge game for the Boston Celtics, a game where they could potentially be 2 games over, looking to take over that 6-5 or 4 spot that they're creeping up on. So really a big one tonight. I think people, this is underrated. This is a must-win game in my opinion. You can't go back to 500. Let's keep the trend going. Just stay above, stay afloat.
Sure.
Celtics are playing some phenomenal basketball. Like I said, 7-3 last 10 games. They've been great. So we got a little reoccurring segment here, over under. The Celtics are playing the Houston Rockets. Unfortunately, we got 3 of them tonight. Now the first one here, Jason Tatum. The man's been a problem the past 3 games, putting up very great numbers, averaging right around 34 points per game in the past 3 on great shooting numbers. Does Jason Tatum go over under 26 points tonight, guys?
This is interesting because with Jaylen Brown back in the fold and us facing a really bad team, the trend of Jason Tatum says over right now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, well, the trend.
But then you got to look at the circumstances. This could be a minute restriction night for all the team. This could be a Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, a couple more scorers entering the lineup. Jason Tatum also lit up the Houston Rockets in Game 1.
I mean, mind you, the Tatum second night of a back-to-back against Oklahoma, you could also have called that a rest game. He played 34 minutes. He had 33 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. So obviously Brown's back in the lineup, but you could still see it. I'm going to take the over here.
Wait, can we change? I know this might not seem like a difference. Can we change it to like 25.5 or 26.5?
Okay,
that way, if we're on.
So 25.5. Yeah, this is average on the season. So we're going to go 25.5.
Okay, I'm going over.
All right.
I'll go over tonight. I think he's been on a tear as of late. I think it will only continue. I think he's hitting his stride finally. And even when he wasn't really hitting his stride, he was still getting near that mark or even over that mark on some nights. So I'll have to take the over with Tatum tonight.
Really quick, what feels so good about Jason Tatum, these 30-point games, is it's not the fact that he's starting to, kind of awake. It's the fact that it's in front of the Boston crowd, where the Celtics in front of their starting crowd or their home crowd started the season out horribly. It was embarrassing to the point where they were 0-3 at home and they were getting booed off every single game. And Jason Tatum had a terrible game pretty much every single time. So it's really relieving to see Jason Tatum not only succeed, but succeed in front of the home crowd, especially against the Lakers.
For sure. And
yeah, I'm going
numbers.
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm going over. Jaylen Brown only playing 24 minutes tonight. Jason Tatum, he's been on fire the last 3 games. I don't see how he doesn't go over, especially because the Rockets they're just awful.
Yeah, they're making a run for, you could see a historically bad season this year, I think.
Who would you say is worse, the Rockets or the Pelicans?
Oh, the Rockets right now.
The Rockets by a mile.
The Rockets have 1 win, and it's over the Thunder.
Yeah,
I thought the Pelicans only had 1 win.
Yeah,
but a couple days ago.
And look who's on the injury report for the Rockets: John Wall and Kevin Porter Jr., who's actually pretty good. But then you go and you look at on the other side, who's on that injury report over there? Zion Williamson, and night on night, night in, night out. Sometimes it's even Brandon Ingram. So yeah.
So
Houston.
The next one here is another good one. Marcus Smart, right? We kind of was a topic of debate to start the season off, how well he was going to fit into this point guard role. Obviously, Smart was very confident in himself, came out and said, I'm a point guard. That is what I do. However, he's been distributing the basketball very, very well over the past couple games. I mean, since this game against Milwaukee, he's gone for 6 assists, 8, 5, 11, 6, 8. So he really is staying over that 6, 7. He's averaging right around 7.5 over the past 5 games. Where do you guys? So I don't know why I'm saying a question. The over under is. The over under is Marcus Smart over under 7.5 assists tonight.
Ooh. 7.5.
So the last 3 games, Smart has gone for 11, 6, and 8.
I mean, I guess that's an okay mark with those trends, but 7.5 is so high.
So he's got to get 8 assists tonight.
Yeah, 8 assists.
With like Seamus said, kind of with the Tatum, the way it's trending, maybe yes, but the way it's been, maybe no.
Yeah, maybe this is a flat spot for Smart. I'm gonna respectfully take the under on Smart. 7.5 is too high.
I'm gonna go under as well. I mean, maybe I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm gonna go under.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's tough because he is trending in the right direction, but at the same time, I don't know. I see him getting like 6 tonight. That's my thing. So
I'm taking the over.
So you think he's gonna get?
I think he's gonna get 8, and people might call me crazy, and I might call myself crazy. It's definitely bold, but the reason why I think he's gonna hit over is one. I'm looking at where it's trending, and it's trending in upwards, and I'm also looking at his field goal attempts. Those are also really down. So I do think tonight it's a game, like I said, against the Houston Rockets, a game where Jaylen Brown's coming back to the lineup, Robert Williams back to the lineup. I think it's going to be a game where the ball gets moved around a lot. I don't necessarily see a lot of isolation ball. I think Smart's going to be kicking the ball out, attacking the paint, which he's been doing so well. I'm taking the over here tonight. Past 3 games, 11 against the Hawks, 6 against the primetime game against the Lakers, then 8 against the struggling OKC team.
Something we also have to consider with that is, I'm not saying you're not, by the way, Rob. I'm just saying, like, even for the people at home who do these as well, you have to also consider the Celtics' ability to hit shots, especially open shots. I know everyone roasts Ian for saying that all the time, but it's kind of true. When the Celtics start hitting their open shots, which they've kind of started to do, hence a little 7-3 run here in the last 10 games, then that's when we stop saying that. But you also got to think of, both sides. Yes, his playmaking is amazing, but at the same time, Celtics going to be able to hit their shots at the end of it.
Yeah. You know what, Rob, you convinced me. I'm going with the over. I honestly think because I honestly think he's going to hit the over just because of how bad the Rockets are. And honestly, I have a feeling that the Celtics are going to get a whole lot of wide open shots. And, it might be stupid to think this, but I think they're going to make most of their open shots tonight, hopefully.
So that actually brings us right into our next one. We have yet to do a team over under, right? It's only been players. So the next one for the team is, like you said, Celtics have kind of struggled shooting the ball, hitting their open shots. They've been shooting decent from the floor. Do we see the Boston Celtics shooting the ball over under 48.5 from the floor tonight?
Percent?
Yeah, 48.5%.
You're gonna have to look at the trends on this one because
what they shoot against the Rockets last game?
The last time we played the Rockets, or like the Thunder, you mean?
Rockets.
Oh God, I'd have to date back to that. When was that? November what? Or September?
No, it was
yeah, it was September 23rd, 4th.
September.
Yeah.
Season
October.
Started.
My bad.
Okay.
All right, so it looks like
44%.
we're averaging 44.5% on the season between everyone.
So the Celtics shot 44% against the Rockets.
48 is a lot. I mean,
it is. That's a pretty good day.
Mind you,
a lot again.
This team is pretty bad.
And I don't know. Maybe Josh Richardson doesn't really factor into it, but say the bench does come into the game and say it's a fourth quarter, just an entire garbage time fourth quarter. That's when you could see a ton of missed shots from both teams. I'm going to be under here, but I hope we go over because that means we're going to probably.
Yeah, I'm also going to take the under, but I'm going to pray. I'm literally going to cheer for them and hope I'm wrong. I'm going to pray I get this over under wrong.
I said Marcus Smart was going to get over 8 assists or over 7.5, and that means players have to hit their wide open shots. And I have a feeling they're going to hit their shots tonight. So I'm going to go over. It's probably not going to be over. It's probably going to be like right at 48, but I'm going over with it.
I think it's going to go two directions. I think it's. I want to say, because this could, don't get me wrong, this could be a night where the Celtics come out and just miss their every shot they take, and they shoot 41%, and it's kind of they just shut the other team out on defense. They win 90-70, 4. But,
is this a game where we only hit 2 threes? Or was that against
the
Wizards?
No, that was against the
Wizards. Was against the Wizards.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking red court, so I was just thinking, geez.
But, I'm going to take the under, but I think we go slightly under. I think 48. Ooh, geez, voice crack. But I think 48 was.
I didn't even notice, honestly.
Is a little high. It's a bad team. It shouldn't be. You should really hit right around 48-50 when you're playing the worst team in the NBA. But, trends, you really can't. I wouldn't feel comfortable taking the over. So I'm gonna take the under.
Y'all got no faith in them in these over-unders today.
I have faith.
I'm joking. I know you guys have faith.
It's a little high.
It's a little high. Yeah, it's just a little high tonight.
I'm in a good mood. I'm in an over mood today, so I think that's why we're going.
Hey, look, I tried that strategy. It don't work.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do it 12 times in a row. All right.
Come on.
I have a stat real quick. So we played 18 games, right, or 17 games. We've only shot over 48.5% 4 times this season in 7.
Well, it's going to be 5 tonight.
Oh,
well,
boy.
our games.
Oh boy.
4 games were LA.
Watch him shoot. Watch him
Charlotte.
shoot like 30% from the field today because I say that.
Ian, you're as trustworthy as you're as trustworthy as your GPS directions.
I was gonna say something, but I don't know. I don't know if we should. Hey, I know your parents watch the show, so I'm not gonna go there. All right, Justin's. But we both know what happened before my GPS directions.
We both
all
know
right?
Mama Lo took the wrong turn. That's what
All right.
happened.
Whoa. It's understandable. Brad Stevens got lost driving Gordon Hayward back to the airport. So
Did he really?
I believe that's the story.
Oh my god, I didn't hear about that. That's
when
cool.
he first came to recruit. When Gordon came to Boston for recruitment, I believe they got lost in the city of Boston. I don't know. You guys live there. I don't. So
Well, it's like maybe it was
That's
like,
kind of
oh no, we're lost. You have
It's
to.
not a
stay.
hard. Boston's not exactly a hard or an easy.
No,
city to
if you know where the you know how to get to the Garden, right? There's a thing you either go into the tunnel or you literally veer the slightest right, and it takes you right to the airport, right down the south end.
Yeah.
My mom barely missed it, which is stupid because she drives there literally like 10 times a season, and she didn't think of veering left because you got to go into the tunnel, and she went right and she went south, and we ended up in South Boston. That's what happened.
Oh wow.
Well,
Well,
and then Ian almost sent us back on 93 to New Hampshire. We would have been at Rob's house.
Although it's not my fault, by the way. I put in the directions. I 100% blame Waze. Although I use Waze, I blame it for sending us to that point. All right, so.
well, ways you can sponsor us if you want. However, the Boston Celtics will tip off against the not the Toronto Raptors. Oh my God, the Houston Rockets very shortly here, just in a couple minutes. We are going to take you right up to the tip, guys. We're closing out here. Come back here for post game live to watch essentially the same show except post game, so it's a little different. It's a lot of fun. We highly recommend you come do that, guys. Before we close out, before we head out, any last words before we close out the show?
Go out and compete like you did the first 3.5 quarters of OKC. Just this time, play a full 48 minutes. This is another trap game. You go out here, the game against, the Rockets, 1-15, and then you go and you get the, first round matchup of last year. Take care of business at home. Keep it going.
I've been saying how bad the Celtics have been in the fourth quarter. Their net rating in the fourth quarter is negative 14.6.
Yeah,
that is laughable.
Bad.
That is
like
bad.
on par with the worst.
I mean, blowing two 19-point leads in a season doesn't help, but at the same time, just close out the game, please.
Yeah, just win tonight. Because remember what I said a couple weeks ago? It seems like now, if we go 5-2 in these next 7 games, we'll be good. Well, here we go. We're 4-2. This is the 5th game. Win tonight. 1-15 Rockets. If we don't come away with the win, massive disappointment.
For sure. Guys, like I said, come back here for Celtics Talk Weekly post-game live. Us 4 will be back.